Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to me, your host, Christian Watson. My friends, it is, of course, June, and thus it is Pride Month. Now, the designation Pride Month comes from a very long, storied, and unique history of homosexuality and its relationship to society in the United States. Indeed, for a very long time, homosexuality was castigated and scorned by the broader society, and particularly the government in the United States. And of course, this all culminated into what became the Stonewall riots, which we'll talk about in a split second here, which was commemorated in 1990s by Bill Clinton, who officially recognized June as Pride Month, and then presidents since him, including Barack Obama, also recognized June as Pride Month, and even President Trump recognized June as Pride Month once or twice in his administration. So, what are the origins of Pride Month? Well, as I mentioned a few moments ago, homosexuals were most certainly castigated and alienated in society. In the 1950s, McCarthy, who was particularly hell-bent on, in his words, finding communism in the United States, he was also hell-bent in viewing gay men as a national security threat. There was an event called the Lavender Scare, which, among many other things, it involved the mass ejection of homosexuals from public services, from public government jobs, and from broader society. It laid the foundation for the police to raid gay bars where grown-up homosexuals were congregating peaceably and consensually amongst themselves. It also gave the emphasis for police to use antiquated laws at that time to arrest drag queens or men who dressed in drag, or even women who didn't wear at least 3 pieces of what was deemed back then feminine clothing. Many police departments in the nation had a public morals division where their cops would go out and arrest gay people and keep them on lists. The post office even was monitoring their packages to see if they contain anything in relation to homosexuality. And so, of course, after all of this was just a massive buildup, and when the Stonewall situation happened, what happened at Stonewall on June 28th in 1969 was that cops raided the bar, arrested several people, brutalized several gay folks in there, and then outside, instead of scattering, the gay folks around the area actually protested, rioted, tried to burn the bar down and things of that sort. And then this kicked off the gay rights movement. Of course, there were other instances in American society that led up to it, but this was the watershed moment. My friends, as I mentioned in the title, I would like us to take a moment to imagine a world without Pride Month, because perhaps that world is the world we prefer. Perhaps that world is the world moral people prefer. When I say moral, I don't mean in terms of liking or not liking homosexuality. When I say moral, I mean in terms of respecting an individual's moral agency and their rights. My friends, I have a serious problem with Pride Month, but that problem is not due to who it is talking about. That problem is due to how it happens. So allow me to give you an example. I want you to entertain a thought experiment with me for a second. Let us say we have a factory in an open space, or near a village rather, and that factory is polluting the air, and this pollution is causing the villagers to have significant health problems. Now let us then assume that in response to this problem, after a very long time of this problem happening, and now it's so bad that there's smog in the air, just like China a few years ago, people have to wear masks not to be infected. Let us assume the villagers open their own factory, which they would call a filtration factory. Assume this hypothetical world exists. And this filtration factory is able to cleanse the atmosphere somehow of the pollutants. But this filtration factory runs on the same principle that the factory putting out poison into the air runs on. They have different forms, but in essence, they're the same thing. Are the villagers better off because they have this sanitation factory in their village? Or are they worse off because they're using the same principle that they're trying to fight? This is the essential question when it comes to Pride Month. The truth is, my friends, homosexuals in the United States were justified in trying to push back against the bigoted attacks against them and the illegalization that ensued from those bigoted attacks. Because for a very long time in America, even after 1969, you were criminalized for being gay. You were criminalized for dressing a certain way. You were criminalized for doing things outside of the purview of the accepted social standard. And in a country where the primacy of the individual is the moral standard that guides our founding documents, in a country where the natural rights of everybody, not the social rights or the gay rights or the trans rights, the natural rights are to be respected and impose a social imperative upon everybody else to respect them. In a society where these things are true, there is no room for bigotry to overtake the legal mechanism of the society and punish people who politicians or certain people in that society do not like. Everyone has rights, and those rights must be respected. And for a very long time, they were not. And gay folks were penalized for every little thing under the sun because of this national security apparatus, which deemed them a threat, and the broader social moral police that confused tastes with ethics, that confused their personal disdain of homosexuality with ethical thinking, both of which are separate. But instead of rejecting the principle that those attitudes rested upon and those laws rested upon, Pride Month developed on the same principle, and that principle is collectivism. My friends, it's not enough to simply say that gays were penalized for being gay in the 50s and 60s. We have to understand what principle provided the justification for that, and that was the principle of collectivism. America was undergoing this period where it was trying to shield itself from all kinds of threats, and homosexuals were seen as socially subversive. And so the idea was, to protect the collective, we have to sacrifice these individual deviants. But in no moral society is the individual to ever be sacrificed for a collective. That's not how good moral thinking works. And yet, for a long time in American society, our moral terms were flipped backwards. But instead of proclaiming the value of individual rights, right after Stonewall, this gay rights movement completely and utterly embraced collectivism of a different sort. Right after Stonewall, there were several organizations that went under the term Gay Liberation Front, which helped organize many pride marches and other kinds of activities meant to push for gay rights. And the Gay Liberation Front, which popped up in America and in the UK and other countries as well, took its name after communist guerrillas in Vietnam and otherwise. And not only did it take its name, its aesthetic inspiration after communist guerrillas, it also took its policy positions after communist guerrillas as well. The Gay Liberation Front was decidedly anti-capitalist, and they pushed for reproductive rights, in their words, and a bunch of other policy prescriptions that had nothing to do with ensuring that homosexuals were respected as individuals, not as simply products of their arbitrary characteristics, but had everything to do with pushing a left-wing collectivist agenda. And this is why there is a great confusion, my friends, in our current society when someone says that they don't support Pride Month, or when someone says they don't support the Pride movement, they are almost always mistaken as a homophobe, when in all reality, perhaps they are simply an individualist, like this gay man right here who refuses to support Pride Month, not because I want us to go back to the pre-Stonewall days, but because I want us to move away from the pre-Stonewall days. And right now, the majority of gay activists in this country who support Pride Month are keeping the gay community, for lack of a better word, in America squarely in the pre-Stonewall days by embracing collectivism. Gay folks are not a monolith. They are not a machine you can assume has a certain set of values because they're gay. They are individuals like you and I. And oftentimes, my friends, almost always, what is most exciting and interesting about an individual is not who they want to sleep with, but what their values are, what they do in life. But what Pride Month does is it keeps the same spirit of collectivism, the same general idea that there's this broader whole construction, this broader whole mass, this broader whole community that people belong to on the basis of something they couldn't control. That is a form of conceptual slavery. Here's what I'm saying, my friends. Instead of embracing the primacy of the individual, so many gay activists embraced socialist language, and so many gay activists embraced collectivism. And collectivism of the sort that oppressed gay individuals in the McCarthy era and in the 1950s is of the same sort that gay individuals use, or at least gay activists in the 60s used, and now use, to push certain ideas. The truth is, my friends, the emphasis when it comes to homosexuals or anyone else should not be on their homosexuality. It should be on their universal humanity. And I want us to imagine, going back to that same thought experiment, a world where the factory didn't exist in the first place. The filtration system would never have had to exist either. That is a world where the individual is seen as primary, where collectivism is rejected and rejected forcefully. And that is a world we can definitely live in. And that is a world, I think, that is the default state of man. It's been deviated from in many parts of society for many years. That is a world we can definitely live in, my friends. But if and only if we get past the idea of Pride Month, if and only if we get past the idea of power imbalances, intersectionality, and discrimination, if and only if we break these sterile, low-volume ideas which do nothing more than pigeonhole people into something beyond themselves on the basis of themselves, when we can get past that point, then there will be no need for Pride Month. There will be no need for any of this. People will be seen for what they do and their universal moral character, or lack thereof, and not their physical characteristics. I want us to imagine that world. And in that world, my friends, Pride Month cannot exist. I don't dislike Pride Month because it's whatever. There's many critiques that are silly, that it's degenerate or what. I don't care about any of that. All of that is incidental. But what Pride Month is at its core, it is an assertion of collectivism. And no one can be free, no one can be truly liberated unless they reject collectivism, both in their politics, in spirit, in mind, and in truth. But we have to kill our darlings to do that. And the first one we have to probably kill is Pride Month. Not out of hatred, but out of love for our individualities and who we are as people. Not simply lesbian women, gay men, or whatever, but as human beings. That's the world where the factory never existed. And that's the world where the pollution never happened. And we can get there. We just have to work for it in our minds and our hearts and our spirits and our bodies. Think on it, my friends. I love you guys so much, and if you love me, please be sure to support me on Patreon, patreon.com/PhilCWatson, or PayPal, officialcwatson@gmail.com. Please be sure to join my locals, which is going to be christianwatson@locals.com. Please be sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, share this video. I would appreciate it so much, guys. I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.